The world of rock and roll has seen its share of guitar legends, but none quite like Randy Rhoads. From the humble beginnings of his musical journey to the electrifying moments on stage with Ozzy Osbourne, his life was a symphony of talent, unforgettable riffs, and heavy metal brilliance. But as his fame soared to unimaginable heights, his life would take a chilling turn. Join us as we journey through the extraordinary life of Randy Rhoads, a tale of music, brilliance, and a legacy that continues to inspire. This is the story of a guitar legend from his first chord to the last. Randy Rhoads was born on December 6, 1956, in Santa Monica, California, into a musical family. His parents established the Musonia School of Music in North Hollywood in 1949. Although their home was filled with music, the family couldn't afford a record player or TV for many years. Yet this did not deter Randy. In fact, his musical journey began in a rather unusual way. At the age of 5, while exploring his mother's closet, he accidentally knocked down his grandfather's 1918 Gibson Army Navy special guitar, and this incident sparked Randy's interest in playing the 6-string instrument. And within a year, his mother started giving him acoustic guitar lessons. After playing successfully for several years, Randy was ready to rock, and transitioned to electric guitar lessons at Musonia under the guidance of Scott Shelley. This decision sparked a passion in him, and from that moment, he knew what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. However, it wasn't long before Randy outgrew his new guitar teacher. After just 9 months, his teacher admitted that Randy had learned all he could teach, and in fact, Randy was now teaching him. Music was clearly Randy's calling, and by the time he was a teenager, he had already planned his career. Graduating at 16, he devoted himself to playing in bands and teaching guitar at his mother's music school. His mother noted his exceptional passion and had never seen someone with a similar love for playing the guitar. He was virtually inseparable from the instrument. In his teen years, Randy played with various local bands, eventually joining forces with Kelly Garney to form Little Women. After recruiting Kevin as lead vocalist and Drew on drums, they quickly renamed the band Quiet Riot. As a founding member, Randy quickly became a sensation on the Los Angeles music scene in the late 70s. His influence was so strong that fans started mimicking his polka dot vests and bow ties at Quiet Riot concerts. Randy even had a custom-made polka dot flying V-style guitar. His guitar skills were similar to the legendary Edward Eddie Van Halen, and he was known for blending flashy rock and roll with a classical touch, a style then rare in metal music. To this day, even decades later, fans of rock and metal still debate whether Randy Rhoads or Eddie Van Halen was the superior guitarist. But despite Quiet Riot's popularity in LA clubs, the band struggled to break out. Around the same time in 1979, Ozzy Osbourne seemed to be at the peak of his career in Los Angeles. Black Sabbath had released their 8th album, Never Say Die, and completed a tour with Van Halen. Amidst the wild atmosphere of a rented Los Angeles home, while working on their 9th album, Black Sabbath dropped a major bombshell. They were parting ways with Osbourne. Without a band, Ozzy Osbourne was at the lowest point in his career. Struggling with drugs and alcohol, he was heading down a self-destructive path. His manager and future wife, Sharon Arden, stepped in to get him back on track, and the solution, it seemed, was simple. She would manage Ozzy Osbourne as a solo act. But soon, they found that something was missing. Ozzy had yet to find anyone who understood music the way he did, someone who could really take the music to the next level. Enter Randy Rhoads, familiar in the LA club scene, who caught the attention of Dana Strum, who would later become the bassist for hard rock band Slaughter. Strum persistently urged Randy to audition for Ozzy, to which Randy initially responded, "Who's Ozzy Osbourne?" But despite his reluctance, his mother eventually convinced him that he should try out for no other reason than to at least make some connections in the music industry. Seeing it as a chance to break out of a musical dead end, Randy agreed to try out. Ozzy recalls the audition with amusement. "I didn't know how to audition. My producer brought Randy round when I was really drunk. I'd been drinking all day, and this little guy came in, and I thought he was a girl at first. He was such a tiny guy." Randy came with his Gibson Les Paul and a practice amp and began warming up. Ozzy, heavily intoxicated at the time, was blown away by Randy's solo, wondering if he was hallucinating due to his state. Ozzy immediately offered him the job. Randy remembered, "I just turned up and did some riffs," and he said, "You've got the gig." I had the weirdest feeling because I thought, "How? You didn't even hear me yet." However, it seemed they both needed each other. Ozzy was looking to revive his career, and Randy needed a bigger stage for his humble personality and extraordinary talent. Sharon noted the change in Ozzy, saying, "As soon as he found Randy, it was like night and day. He was alive again. Randy was a breath of fresh air, funny, ambitious, just a great guy." However, working with Ozzy was quite a shock for Randy. He was still living at home when he traveled to England to collaborate with Ozzy, which was a whole new world for him. Until then, Randy's life revolved around Musonia, school, and the church choir led by his mother. Ozzy's rock and roll lifestyle was a clear contrast, and while Randy didn't disapprove, he definitely experienced a culture shock. But despite the initial shock, Randy quickly became a key factor in Osbourne's musical comeback. The two albums they produced together, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, skyrocketed to heavy metal fame, making Randy a guitar hero for his generation. On November 5, 1981, Ozzy launched the Diary of a Madman tour to promote his second album. The tour spanned Europe, North America, and Asia, further solidifying their fame. During this time, Randy expressed to Ozzy his desire to take a break from touring and recording. His goal was to return to school to pursue a master's degree in classical music, following in his mother's footsteps. Ozzy, surprised by his decision, said to him, "Are you crazy? You could buy your own university." However, Randy was firm in his decision to start his education in classical music, and his mother had even begun making arrangements with the University of California to facilitate this next step in his academic journey. But fate had a different plan for Randy Rhoads, and on March 19, 1982, tragedy struck. Ozzy Osbourne remembers the last conversation he had with Randy on the tour bus, where Randy expressed concern about Ozzy's heavy drinking, warning, "You'll kill yourself, one of these days." Rather than indulging in these typical excesses associated with the rock star lifestyle, Randy often spent his free evenings practicing his craft. But tragically, Randy would soon find himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. That night, the band had played in Knoxville, Tennessee, and after driving much of the night, they stopped in Leesburg, Florida. There, they stopped to repair the bus's broken air conditioning unit while Osbourne and the others slept on board. Their stop was at Flying Baron Estates, owned by the Calhoun Brothers Tour Bus Company, a unique community where residents had airplanes parked in their backyards. The bus driver, 36-year-old Andrew Aycock, who was also a licensed pilot, impulsively decided to take a Beechcraft F35 plane for an unsanctioned flight. On his first flight, he brought along keyboardist Don Ailey and tour manager Jake Duncan, daringly flying very low over the bus in an attempt to wake drummer Tommy Aldridge, while Ozzy Osbourne and bassist Rudy Sarzo were also sleeping on the bus. After a successful first flight, Andrew invited Randy and makeup artist Rachel Youngblood for a second trip. Bassist Rudy Sarzo, recommended by Randy for Osbourne's band, almost joined them but changed his mind at the last minute, choosing sleep over adventure. Reflecting on that decision, Rudy later shared, "It was going to be our day off. And this was the first time that I ever turned down any adventures that Randy and I would do on the road," he recalls. "I can't really say there was any premonition that kept me from getting on that plane. It was destiny." But it remains a mystery why Randy, known for his discomfort with flying, did agree to get on the plane. It is believed that he only boarded the plane so he could take some aerial photographs for his mother. Tour manager Duncan later recounted, "After we landed, Andrew came up to me and told me that he was going to take Rachel up for a ride, and that being aware of her heart condition, he assured me that he was just going to take it easy, circle the property a couple of times, and not pull any crazy stunts." So when Randy heard that, he decided to join them so he could take some aerial shots with his camera. During the second flight, more attempts were made to fly low over the tour bus to wake the sleeping crew. Andrew managed 2 close flybys, but the third attempt ended in disaster. Around 10 a.m., just 5 minutes into the flight, one of the plane's wings hit the top of the tour bus, snapping into two and sending the plane spiraling out of control. This initial impact with the bus caused Randy's and Rachel's heads to crash through the plane's windshield. The plane then crashed into a pine tree and nosedived into the garage of the nearby mansion, bursting into flames upon impact. The explosion jolted Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne and bassist Rudy Sarzo awake. Stepping out of the bus, they were met with a horrific scene. A small plane had crashed into the house right in front of them, devastated and smoldering. Rudy remembers, "I woke up to this loud boom that shook the bus. I knew something had hit us. When we got to the front, the window was shattered, and I looked out and I saw our tour manager on his knees, pulling his hair out and yelling, 'They're gone!' We were all confused and didn't know what had happened." Don Airey, the band's keyboardist, was the only one awake to witness the crash. He was outside the bus taking photos to later give to Randy. Don recounted noticing a struggle inside the plane as it neared the bus. He observed, "I had my camera and was taking photos of the plane to give to Randy afterwards. I had my telephoto lens on and could tell that there was some sort of struggle going on aboard the plane. The wings were rapidly tipping from side to side. At one point, the plane almost became diagonal, no more than 6 feet off the ground. That's when I put down my camera and saw the plane right in front of me. I quickly crouched to avoid getting hit and looked over my shoulder and watched it clip the bus, crash into the tree, and explode on impact into the garage." Bassist Rudy believes that Randy played a crucial role in preventing a greater tragedy. He shared, "I am 1,000% convinced that Randy saved everybody in Ozzy's tour bus, keeping the plane from crashing into us." He recalled, "It clipped the bus, but it did not crash directly into it, and if that had happened, we would all have perished." In the immediate aftermath of that crash, drummer Tommy Aldridge grabbed a fire extinguisher from the bus and rushed towards the crash site, attempting to extinguish the fire. Sadly, his efforts were not sufficient to control the blaze. Back then, without modern communication technology, alerting emergency services was a challenge. It took witnesses on horseback, who had seen the flames and smoke, to report the incident. Consequently, the group was stranded for about 2 hours before any first responders arrived on the scene. The intense fire claimed the lives of all 3 on board, leaving them beyond recognition. Randy was later identified through his jewelry. Randy died at the age of 25. Miraculously, no one in the plane owner's house was harmed. The aftermath was traumatic for the surviving band members. Sharon described the devastating sight. "They were all in bits, it was just body parts everywhere." Rudy shares, "Dealing with the immediate reality of the tragedy, we were all hit with intense survival guilt." The band had to remain in Leesburg for an additional 2 days during the initial investigation, wrestling with their feelings in the wake of the incident. Meanwhile, Ozzy tried to drown his sorrow and guilt with alcohol and drugs, leaving manager Sharon with the challenging task of piecing together both the shattered artist and the broken band. In fact, the tour might have come to an abrupt end following Randy's tragic death, if not for Sharon's insistence that the show must go on. Amidst the heartbreak, the band quickly found a stand-in guitarist in Bernie Torme. In the investigation that followed, the National Transportation Safety Board concluded that the crash resulted from poor judgment. The report detailed, the pilot, who was a rock group driver, took an aircraft from the hangar without permission to joyride members of the group. And the NTSB investigation determined that the bus driver's aviation medical certificate had expired. It was also found that he had been the pilot in another fatal crash in the United Arab Emirates 6 years earlier. There were rumors that Andrew might have been trying to target his ex-wife, who was standing near the Osbourne tour bus at the time of the crash. Ozzy Osbourne later revealed that Andrew had been seen doing cocaine all night prior to the tragic accident. The FAA's toxicology test confirmed that Andrew indeed had traces of cocaine in his system, while Randy Rhoads only had nicotine in his body. The autopsy report concluded that Randy died as the result of multiple skull fractures with traumatic laceration of the brain secondary to an aircraft accident. His body was then severely burned after the impact with the house. In the years since Randy Rhoads' death, Ozzy Osbourne has frequently spoken about his deep respect and affection for the late guitarist. "I knew instinctively that he was something special. He was like a gift from God. We worked so well together. Randy and I were like a team, you know. He gave me a reason for carrying on." Prior to his death, Jackson Guitars was designing a signature model for Randy, named the Jackson Randy Rhoads. Randy received one prototype, a black offset V that became the foundation of Jackson's RR series, but he died before the model went into mass production. Jackson Guitars later released a replica of Randy's iconic white short wing V, meticulously crafted based on extensive examination of his original guitar. Only 60 units were made, each priced at $12,619.56, symbolic of Randy's birth date. In 2021, Randy was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, cementing his legacy in the annals of music history. As we reflect on the remarkable life and legacy of Randy Rhoads, it's clear that his impact on the world of music extends far beyond the years he spent on this earth. A legendary guitarist, Randy redefined the boundaries of rock and metal with his innovative style and classical influence.